Hi everyone, welcome back. Today's video is going to be a Q&A. I like to do these about once a year because it gives an opportunity for new viewers to ask me some questions and I can give you some answers. I'm more than happy to answer things about like blogging, YouTube, my personal life, to an extent of course. And I thought that this would give you a little bit more of an insight into my life based on the questions you've asked, because I post a lot of personal stuff on Instagram stories, but I'm sure not all of you follow me there. So this video hopefully will give you some answers if you've had some questions about me. Okay, so I've asked for questions on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, so I'm just gonna dive straight in. So the first question is not really a question, it's just one of my friends being super sweet. Samantha asked me, why are you so pretty? And I can't really give you an answer to that. Only my parents are really responsible for what I look like. Kimberly asked, how do you like your condo now that you're settled in? We freaking love it. We actually got the keys about almost exactly a year ago, and there is not a week that goes by where we're not expressing how content we are with this place. It's literally perfect for what we need. We have all the space we need for living in downtown Toronto, and we got it for an amazing price tag, which was just unprecedented because condo prices in Toronto are just, they're nuts. And I mean, it's not a house, which would have been the ideal, but I can't afford a house in Toronto, so this is like the next best thing, and it's better than I ever could have hoped for. Katie asked me, how do I do my new hair curls or waves, which I don't have in right now, but I did do a tutorial on how to get those hair curls. I know a lot of people don't tend to watch my hair tutorials because really this is a makeup channel, but I will link to that tutorial down below. Lori asked me, what do you do for a living other than YouTube? Okay, so let me get this straight first of all. YouTube at my level does not pay me any kind of a livable wage. I think I might make from AdSense about $100 every 3 months. So I mean, like, I can't live off of that. So this is definitely not my job. Sponsored posts do bump up that total a little bit, but in all reality, I'm not living off of anything I make via YouTube or the blog. So my real job is I work for a national bank in Canada, and I've only recently just switched jobs within that bank. I used to be in communications, and I did a lot of editing of comms for internal employees, and now I'm working in the marketing department, and I'm managing a website that provides marketing material to the employees of the bank. I've been in this new job about 2 months now, and I really like it. It's more in line with my talents, so to speak, because it deals a lot with like web design, some HTML coding, and a lot of like print stuff that I don't necessarily know a ton about, but I want to learn about. So this is a really good job for me right now. So Samantha Jane asked me on Twitter, what's your preferred gum flavor? I don't know what it's actually called. I think it's the Dentyne brand. No, it's not, it's Excel. I don't even know what gum I bought. I just know what the packaging looks like. I think it's Excel, and it's the pale blue packaging. Is that peppermint? I have no idea. But that's the one I always gravitate towards, the Excel one in the pale blue packaging. And she also asked, what's your favorite deodorant scent? I think it's Secret Spring Breeze. I think that's the name of it. But I think they just discontinued it, which is really unfortunate because I've been using it since I was in my teens, and it's like 20 years later and I don't want to be without this deodorant. But I think they recently just like did away with it. Sparkle Beauty asked, why is it that almost every lip color looks good on you? And I don't really have an answer for why other people think it looks good on me, other than to say that I am extremely confident, and you can wear pretty much anything so long as you have the confidence to carry it off. There's some colors that I don't like how they look on me, in particular like concealer lips, and I think there's like a certain color of pale pink that I just do not like on myself. But I can wear it and look okay because I have the confidence to wear it, and really I don't care what anybody else thinks. So if I'm happy with how I look, then I'm gonna portray that. So that gives people the impression that everything looks good on me. Lindsay says, maybe because my life is about kids, but did you ever want any? I didn't. Oops. And she just had a kid, which is why she's saying that. So all throughout my teen years, I did not want kids. Super not into it, yada, yada, yada. Mid-20s, I started to go, okay, I could have a kid. And then now that I've been in my 30s, I'm like, nah, I don't know. I'm open to the idea of it, but it's not necessarily on my radar right now. I realize I'm 35, and usually like the cap for this is around 35 or 40 now, but I'm not really in the mentality right now where I want to have a kid because I don't feel like I'm done with myself, and I don't feel like I have the desire to support a tiny human when I don't feel like I've gotten enough out of my life, so to speak. So hopefully that answers your question. Danielle asks, as another high achiever who wants to do all the things, how do you schedule your days with waiting to work? Do you mean walking to work? I'll say walking to work, blog, exercise goals, partner, friends, etc. What is your process for planning and managing content with all other priorities? So I use Google Calendar extensively, and I will say that that's my main scheduling technique. I go back to that thing pretty much every 30 minutes that I'm awake to make sure that it's in order, and I've got like my workouts planned in there. I don't have when I'm going to my job, but that's basically Monday to Friday, 9 to 5 kind of thing. When I'm working out, specifically when I'm running and when I'm weightlifting, when my soccer is, if I'm figure skating that season, and all of my extracurricular like friend activities, everything is in this calendar, and that is super vital for me. Otherwise I just kind of lose sight of it. And if something is shifting in there, I'm always dragging things around, which is why I've never really supported the idea of like a paper planner where you write things in. It makes no sense to me. I don't know how people do it because my schedule is constantly evolving. So if I'm super sore from weightlifting and I can't weightlift again in another 2 days, I'll just like drag everything to the next day and then rearrange my schedule around it. I am super focused around making sure that my working out is scheduled pretty tightly. I'm either going right after work so I can get it out of the way and not have to worry about it, or I know that I'm planning to run later at night when it's cooler and I have to get that done. A lot of what keeps me in check with this though is I schedule a lot of races, and if I don't train for a race, I'll fail. And because you pay to get into the race, it makes you want to be prepared for it. So that's usually how I keep in check with running. And I realize I'm going on and on about this, but I've had this as a reoccurring question, so I think a few people are interested in how I managed to do so much. But I'm not an especially lazy person. It is very, very rare for me to have a day where I don't do anything, be it not weightlifting, not running, not working on the blog, or anything like that. It's super rare for me to have a day like that because I just don't feel like I'm accomplishing things, and I really don't like that feeling. I'm also somebody that doesn't require like this recharge phase that I think introverts talk about. I get energy off of people, and I like being around people, so I don't struggle if I'm overexposed to people. Like I don't need to go home and be alone for an extended amount of time. The only time that I ever feel the need to recharge would be if I've had like a 10-day span where I can barely get any hours to myself, but that is so rare that it really just doesn't occur that often. I would say that happens maybe like once every 3 years, and I know that sounds ridiculous, but it'll get to that point where I'm like, okay, I need to do nothing tonight so I can recharge, and then honestly, within 2 hours of doing nothing, I'm bored out of my mind and I need to find something to do. So I need to be busy at all times just because I'm kind of wired that way, which is kind of why I find the time to do everything all at once. More recently, I have had to like kind of back off on certain like physical activities because I'm literally at my breaking point right now with how many sports I play. I have soccer, I'm going back to figure skating in the fall, I run and I weightlift, and doing all of those in 1 week is very, very tight, and a lot of it ends up getting doubled up on some days. So I'm worried that at some point my body's just gonna kind of give out. But so far I seem to be okay. But I couldn't really add any more sports into the mix, for example. Another thing to add on to that is because I walk to work, I don't have a long commute. So I have more hours in a day, and I also don't require a ton of sleep either. During the work week, Monday to Friday, I go to bed between midnight and 1 a.m. and I'm up at 6:45. On the weekends, I'll sleep pretty late, like 10 or 11. But in general, I don't need a lot of sleep on the daily in order to be like functional. I work off of 6 hours just fine. I hope that answers your question, but I don't really think I have a solution for anybody unless you're wired the same way. I don't really think of this as managing my priorities. It just sort of happens. So I'm not sitting there worried about how much time I'm spending in any one place. It just kind of all falls together, and I have Google Calendar to thank for how well I can manage it, but for me it's not really a struggle to put all of this into a week. Kaylee asked me if you could move anywhere in the world and cost work was no issue, where would you go and why? I really fell in love with Edinburgh in Scotland, and I couldn't really tell you why. I didn't spend a ton of time out in the nightlife, so that is a little bit of a concern. I want to know that the nightlife is exciting there, but from just going around the city for a few days, I was really enamored with it. So I think I would choose Edinburgh. Jennifer asks, if you had to choose between your blog or YouTube, which one would you choose? And I would definitely choose YouTube. I know my blog has been around longer, but that's because I was more comfortable with the format and I was less comfortable getting on screen. So I opened a blog because I'd had blogs before and that was easy to do, and I already knew how to take pictures and load them to the internet. So that was a very seamless transition. The reason I didn't start YouTube right away is because I didn't really think I had the face for it, or like maybe the personality for it. Everybody back then was kind of like quite young in their like super pink or white bedrooms, and I just didn't really feel like I fit into that. So I just kind of stayed away from YouTube, and then eventually I was like, well, this is ridiculous. I like the platform, let's go for it. So I started up with YouTube, and I definitely prefer it as a medium as opposed to the blog, but I keep both running because they're both very helpful for different things. I can't really review a single item in a video like a lipstick or a single bronzer. It's not good video content, but it makes for a great blog post. So it's great having the two of them because I can pick and choose between each format. Kelly asked me favorite cocktail to order. I'm not much of a cocktail person anymore. I'm way more inclined to order wine or a beer now. When I was younger though, I think I really liked like a tequila sunrise or Sex on the Beach because those were the only cocktail names I really knew back then. I think now if I was gonna order like a mixed drink, I'd probably get a vodka cranberry. Oh no, what's that one? Greyhound, I think it's called. It's grapefruit and vodka. I really like that. I think that's called a Greyhound. But I always forget to order it, so I probably always order vodka cran by accident, but I definitely prefer grapefruit and vodka. Sammy asks, favorite dessert? That would be creme brulee. They also asked biggest pet peeve. I mean, I've got a lot of them because a lot of things like just irritate me, but people who drag their feet have to be my #1 source of irritation on the street. Just pick up your feet, people. It is so grating to hear you dragging your feet on the ground. Like, oh, it drives me freaking nuts. And people who also walk like 5 abreast on the sidewalk and they take up the entire sidewalk. I walk to work, so I encounter a lot of pedestrians. There's a lot of things that really annoy me because I'm moving quickly, I'm not dragging my feet, and I'm trying to get to my destination. So I notice a lot of like issues with pedestrians. So yeah, people who drag their feet and people who walk like 5 abreast. Or even 2 or 3 abreast at times when the sidewalks are small. Like, you're taking up the entire space. Make room, people. Garima asks, how long have you been married and was it love or arranged? So David and I have been married 8 years, and culturally in Canada, there's no arranged marriages. So that's not something I would ever expect to encounter really here. Not in my culture, my background anyway. So it was a love marriage. Garima also asked, apart from YouTube, what else do you do? So I've already explained what my job is. Aside from that, sports, so soccer, figure skating, which I'm not in right now, but I'm taking back up in the fall time, weightlifting, and long distance running. Sarah asked a few questions. #1 is, when you don't eat out, what do you typically eat in a day? It varies to an extent, but I eat a lot of the same things all the time, so there's not a whole lot of difference in my day. For example, a lunch would be like one of those 2-ingredient bagels that I make with an avocado on it. I just mush it up on top, and like a can of tuna and a yogurt cup and an orange. That's one of those really basic lunches that I'll bring to work that's super simple. We eat a lot of tortilla-based meals at home for dinner, so like fajitas, burritos, tacos. I mean, there's a lot of things that people eat, right? So that's just a small sampling of some of the meals that we have. Sarah also asked, other than makeup, do you collect anything or have you ever? Not right now, really, because makeup eats up enough of my money. But I used to collect Nancy Drew books. Some people may be aware that they rewrote them, I think, in the 60s to remove all the like really bad language that were in them. But the stories kind of changed a little bit. So I have almost all of the current versions of the original Nancy Drew books, but I've also got the original, some of the original prints from like the 20s and 30s that had really terrible language in it. But it's interesting to read the difference between some of the storylines because some of them are completely changed and some of them just have a few chapters moved around. That's really the only thing that I can think of that I really collected at one point. I'm looking around like expecting to see a collection or something. I can't really think of anything else. I asked on Instagram stories for more questions, and the first one that came up here is from Julie. She said, can you smell what The Rock is cooking? We had we called it a Rockathon last night where we watched a whole bunch of The Rock's movies. Really, really like him. Dominica asked a few questions. What was your first job, and then what was your first official one? So, I think my first job would have been working for my dad when I was like 12 years old. But does that really count? So he's a lawyer, and I worked in his law firm as like a secretary, answering phones, stuff like that. I actually did write up several affidavits at that age, which I'm not sure if the clients would have appreciated it, but I mean, it was always like checked by the other secretary at the time. I also babysat at like age 12, so I guess that sort of counts. My first real job would have been being a teller at the same national bank that I work for now. Although that was part-time work that eventually led into full-time work at the bank. She also asked, what's your favorite show at the moment? And I watch a lot of TV. So right now, just today, I've started The Handmaid's Tale, and I'm just like blown away. It's really depressing because the women have no rights whatsoever, and it's quite horrifying, but oh man, is this show ever intriguing. Tori asked, what has been the most rewarding part of beauty blogging? And hands down, it is the friends that I have made from blogging. When I started blogging, I had basically no friends. I had just quit World of Warcraft after having played it for 5 years, and I basically lost all of my friends in Toronto, which was my own fault. Wasn't connecting with them anymore. And friends just eventually fall away if you don't stay in touch with them. And I was just welcomed into this Canadian beauty blogging network after about like, I would say 8 to 10 months of blogging. So it wasn't right away because people don't know who you are when you first start posting on the internet. But I have made some really solid friendships through blogging, and that has definitely been the most important thing. I mean, people will talk about like, oh, they get all kinds of product and this and that, whatever. The fact that I have friends who are supportive, share the same interests, that is hands down the best thing that's happened to me because of blogging. My ex has asked me quite a few questions. He's probably the only one I keep in touch with from back in the day that I used to date. I definitely don't talk to anybody else, but he said, talk a little bit about Veronica Mars and that handbag that you got. What details did you like about it? So some of you may know, but I hate carrying purses. Like, I just know if stuff doesn't fit in my pocket, it's not coming with me. But occasionally you end up with an outfit that just has no pockets, so you have to carry a bag around with you. And my husband actually got me a replica of the Veronica Mars bag, which is this thing here, because I was a huge fan of Veronica Mars and I just liked her aesthetic. So he actually got this from a designer in Toronto who has replicated the bag, but he got like this huge pocket put into it that fits my DSLR camera, which was so handy because I was going to PR events when I first started blogging, and I first started getting invited to them, and I had no way to carry around this huge camera, and he got this for me, which was such a surprise. I hadn't asked for it. I had no idea that it was coming, and he got this padded camera pocket in there. So it just felt really special because it was like somebody that I was super enamored with. I loved Veronica Mars to pieces, and it could fit a DSLR, which if you ever watch Veronica Mars, you know she was a private investigator, so she always had a huge camera with her, so that just felt really special. So yeah, the designer who made this is actually in Toronto. I mean, clearly it's a replicated design, but she makes these still, and I will link to her information down below. That's basically the only bag I ever really carry. Sometimes if I'm wearing like a dress with no pockets, I'll carry one of those little like, what do they even call, wristlets, I guess? But other than that, everything has to fit in my pockets because I just hate carrying bags. They're so annoying. He also asked, do you have any role models right now? And honestly, I've never really styled myself after somebody, like in the sense that, oh, I really like the choices they've made in life, I want to be like them. That's never been my kind of thing. I'll look at people and be like, I like your makeup or I like your clothing, I want to wear something similar, but there's no one that I've ever been like, oh, I really look up to you. So not really. He also asked, why does everybody hate Nickelback? Honestly, I don't know. I was super into them when I was younger, like early teens, I guess, but their music was a lot heavier back then. When How You Remind Me came out, I was obsessed with that song, but I think that was the decline for them because that song played on the radio so consistently that people like started to hate it, and as a result they started to hate the band, to this day, I'm still not that bothered by their music, so I really can't figure out why people detest them so much. So I don't really have an answer for that, but there's a lot of people who are not big fans of Nickelback. Kim asked, what kind of shampoo and conditioner do you use to keep your hair looking so healthy? So I have some here that I'm going to talk about, but I first need to say that I do not have picky hair. I can pretty much wear any shampoo or conditioner and my hair is going to look pretty good. The shampoo or conditioner has to be really bad for my hair to react poorly to it, and I'll notice if I'm getting like greasy hair like right out of the shower. That's pretty much how I know if something is terrible, but for the most part, most things work on me. However, there are some things that I like more than others. Number one has to be Sunsilk, and I've been using this brand for quite a long time, but sadly, they actually left North America maybe 6 years ago. Something like that. I bought these two when I was in Australia because that's one of the only places that you can get it now. I think it's more available in Europe, but I can't get it in North America. I bought these huge chunkers in Australia and I'm almost done them, so I'm really gonna be sad when I'm out of these. Something that is available here though is Gliss, and this is by Schwarzkopf. I like clearly the black tube with the gray bottoms. This is their hair repair with liquid keratin. I do like this. I don't think I like it as much as the Sunsilk one, but because this is one that I can actually buy here, this is the one I will now default to. And I've gone through several bottles of these, so I know I do really enjoy it. And the last question I have here is from Una, and she says, what countries are still on your bucket list to visit? And honestly, the bucket list is never ending because I want to go basically everywhere in the world. I want to experience everything that I possibly can, or everything that I possibly can't afford, because traveling costs money. But I do put priority on traveling because I feel like it's super important. I try to go somewhere international new every year. And I'm not talking like North America. Like North America is, I live here, it's not that special or that different to me. I want to see new countries in different locales that are not part of North America. Sadly, this year I'm not able to go on an international trip, which is slightly upsetting, but with buying a new condo, I just didn't have the funds to go anywhere. So next year I am planning on going to England and Ireland. I've already been to England about 5 times and I've already been to Ireland twice, but I am going again. And then I think I'm also planning on going to Spain with my husband later on in the year. But outside of that, the bucket list is never ending. I want to go pretty much everywhere in the world. Okay, so that's all for the questions. That's everything that people have asked me. Thank you so much for sending your questions in. I hope you liked my answers and maybe you learned a little bit more about me. Thanks so much for watching today, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye.